I know we typically start off events with the recitation of Quran, but at the same time, when it's recitation that beautiful and that commanding, it's very intimidating to whoever has to follow that. How do you follow that? It's the words of Allah, it's the kalam of Allah, and it's read that way. And if that wasn't bad enough, then the guy who was on the Daily Show with Jon Stewart spoke before me as well. So it's like I'm talking after celebrity now. So it's pretty tough. But inshallah, I'll try to make the best of the opportunity. Speaking about the recitation of the Quran as well, you know, since we are at the month of Ramadan, I wanted to share one quick thing that I found in some of the books of hadith and about the lectures and the khutbahs of the Prophet ﷺ. You know, so often we treat the recitation of the Quran as a formality. And then we wait for the real talk and the real lecture to begin. There are actually narrations about the Prophet ﷺ that oftentimes when he would give khutbah, he would literally just recite the entire surah. It's narrated about the Prophet ﷺ that on the day of Friday he ascended the minbar and started reciting إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انشَقَّتْ وَأَذِنَتْ لِرَبِّهَا وَحُقَّتْ وَإِذَا الْأَرْضُ, and he recited the entire surah, and when he was done with it, أَقِمِ الصَّلَاةِ, it was time for prayer. One time the Prophet ﷺ is narrated to have ascended the minbar, began the khutbah by reciting Surah Qaf, recited the entire surah in its entirety from the minbar, and that was his khutbah. SubhanAllah. So that's the power, the magnitude of the kalam of Allah, the book of Allah. And inshallah, my very brief and humble effort here today will be to try to extract some lessons, some practical benefit for us from the Quran, inshallah, from the kalam of Allah. I wanted to talk about the reality of da'wah. That when we spread, when we teach, when we share the message and the blessings of Islam, what is the reality of that? And I wanted to, of course, go back to the ultimate of sources, and that is the Quran itself. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran tells us, alright, it's a three-step process that I'd like to lay out to explain what is the reality of da'wah, what is the reality of sharing and teaching the message of Islam to others. The first and foremost is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. It says about Allah in Surah Yunus, in Surah number 10, ayah 25, وَاللَّهُ يَدْعُو إِلَى دَارِ السَّلَامِ. Allah calls to the house or the peace, the place, the abode of peace and tranquility. Alright? At the same time, it tells us in Surah An-Nisa, ayahs 26 through 28, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُبَيِّنَ لَكُمْ وَيَهْدِيَكُمْ سُنَنَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ وَيَتُوبَ عَلَيْكُمْ. That the purpose of this revelation is Allah intends to clarify to you. He intends to explain things to you and to guide you based on the precedent that was laid out from the people of the past. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intends to forgive you and forgive your sins and shower you with His repentance. وَاللَّهُ يُرِيدُ أَنْ يَتُوبَ عَلَيْكُمْ وَيُرِيدُ الَّذِينَ يَتَّبِعُونَ الشَّهَوَاتِ أَنْ تَمِيلُوا مَيْلًا عَظِيمًا. And there might be people out there who are following or indulging in their base desires who will try to lead you astray or lead you off your path. They'll try to confuse you, they'll delude you. You have a very clearly laid out path. And that is a path of forgiveness, a path of guidance, a path of clarity. So don't be distracted, don't be deluded from what you are supposed to do. يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ أَن يُخَفِّفَ عَنْكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intends to lighten your load, raise the burden off of you, away from you. So this tells us a lot about, this is the essence and the core of da'wah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling us to this deen, to the Quran, to this kalam. And what is the premise of that message? Calling us to peace, calling towards forgiveness, calling towards guidance, calling towards clarity of mind and peace and tranquility of the heart, calling towards ease and facilitating life for us. يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. As he recited the ayat even about fasting in the month of Ramadan, Allah intends ease for you. He does not intend difficulty or adversity upon you. So that gives us the basic premise of what da'wah is about. It tells us about the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself is speaking to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, giving him his job description. What is your job description? Inna arsalnaka, most definitely we have sent you, shahidan, as a witness, wa mubashiran, and someone who congratulates people, meaning somebody who motivates people, somebody who inspires people, wa nadhiran, and somebody who warns people. Now, I'd like to talk about this particular aspect. We understand that the Prophet ﷺ was sent to motivate, to inspire, to encourage people. But what about warning people? More often than not, this is the fallacy of translation. This is the issue with translation. We understand warning to be scaring someone. But in reality, in the Arabic language, inzar, in the classical form of the language, actually refers to warning someone of some imminent danger out of love and concern and care and consideration for that person. So if your brother is walking along the sidewalk and there's a ditch up ahead and he's walking straight towards that ditch, this is your brother, you care about him, you don't want him to get hurt. So what you do at that time is you call out, you say, watch out, look out, there's a ditch ahead of you. Don't fall in the ditch. That is inzar, that is the nature of warning, the prophetic method of warning. So even in the warning, there is mercy, there is compassion, there is consideration. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Of course, we're very familiar with this ayah. We have not sent you except as a mercy for all people whenever and wherever they may have existed. At the same time, we move along now. We complete the process. We spoke about the basic premise of da'wah from the perspective of how the Creator is calling us towards this message. How the Messenger ﷺ called us towards this message. And then the actual text, the guidance, the Quran. How does the Quran address this message and this guidance? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in surah number 41, surah Fussilat, which lays the basic premise of da'wah. This surah is like a thesis in how to do da'wah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about this book, the Quran, تَنْزِيلٌ مِنَ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ. It has been revealed, but not just from anyone. From the one who is abundantly merciful, the one that is constantly merciful. كِتَابٌ فُصِّلَتْ آيَاتُهُ. It is a book whose ayat have been laid out very clearly, very elaborately. Quran and Arabian. It is in the Arabic language, لِقَوْمِ يَعْلَمُونَ, for people who are willing to take a listen and understand and comprehend. Bashiran wa nadhira. This is talking about the text, not about the messenger. The text itself is also congratulating, inspiring, motivating, uplifting. And the text is also warning. But again, in that same tone, in that same sense. It's warning us of imminent danger only because the revealer of the text, the one who spoke this text, he cares for us. For all of humanity, for that matter. And he doesn't want to see humanity in suffering and pain and anguish. So he warns them. Look out, be careful, be cautious. Don't trip and fall. This is that basic premise of da'wah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the conclusion of Surah Maryam, he says, فَإِنَّمَا يَسَّرْنَاهُ بِلِسَانِكَ. He tells the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we have made this text very easy on your tongue. لِتُبَشِّرَ بِهِ الْمُتَّقِينَ وَتُنْذِرَ بِهِ قَوْمَ لُدًّا. So that the people that are complicit, the people that are listening, the people that are obeying, you encourage them, you motivate them, and you inspire them. But the people that are in opposition, you warn them with love, passion, and consideration, compassion and consideration. SubhanAllah, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would even teach the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. When he would send them out to different places, he would tell them, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُمْ مُيَسِّرِينَ لَا مُعَسِّرِينَ. You have been sent to make life easier for people, simpler for people, not to complicate things for people. So, based on all of this, the point that I wanted to touch on and I wanted to really drive home is da'wah. We have this very unfortunate concept and notion in the community today, in our community, that da'wah is for itmam al-hujjah. We deliver the message so that's it. We did the job. Now let it rain down fire from the sky. Right? I did my job. I told them what I had to do. Now let it rain. Bring it on. Right? That's not the purpose of da'wah. Da'wah is compassion, to care, to love people. And subhanAllah, what does the Quran tell us about this love? وَيُطْعِمُونَ طَعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. And this work, this job, whether it be the relief work or it be da'wah work, this is done why? Solely based on the love we have for Allah. Out of love and compassion and consideration. So whether people listen or not, I have my motives. I have my purpose is being fulfilled, whether people listen or not. And that is, I am doing it to win the favor and the blessing of my Lord. One of my teachers, he told me, and I'll end on this point, one of my teachers told me something very valuable. When I was graduating and coming back, and obviously, you know, the focus is, all right, I gotta go back and start doing what we're supposed to do. Put all this knowledge to good use, practical use. He gave me one practical piece of advice that stuck with me. He said, when you teach people, when you preach to people, when you talk to people, when you do any type of work, anything that is within the sphere of da'wah, bringing people closer to Allah, he said, do it with love for them in the heart. Make sure you do it with love. Because if you do it with the slightest bit of enmity or hatred, love spreads love. Love spreads khayr. Work that you will do with love in the heart will spread good and khayr. But when you will do the work and you will have hatred or pity, or you'll look down on these people, or you'll just want to get back at these people, then that type of work, that is with the hatred in the heart, it spreads more evil and more harm. It doesn't spread good. We're talking, we're doing, but it's spreading more harm and more hatred and more evil. And so we need to move away from this attitude of, when we do da'wah, we're just trying to pad the statistics. You know what I'm talking about? Padding the statistics? Yeah, another shahada today. All right. And it's only worth it if it translated over to some statistics. We have to move away from this attitude. Who will and will not accept, we have absolutely no idea, no control. But we have to do what we gotta do with the sincerest of intentions and with love and compassion for humanity in our hearts. And based on us being right here at the brink of the month of Ramadan, standing at the brink of the month of Ramadan, I wanted to quote one last incident here. And that is an incident that occurred during the month of Ramadan, and that was the conquest of Makkah, the Fatih of Makkah, the conquest of Makkah. The Prophet ﷺ sent an unbelievable, unparalleled example. Something that is really a standard. These were people who had harmed him, who had oppressed him, who had killed his family and his friends and followers for 20 years. And when he got the chance to stand in front of them with the upper hand, what did he say? لا تثريب عليكم اليوم. I have no beef with you people today. I have no axe to grind. I have no score to settle. I have no grudge. I have no ill will towards you. يغفر الله لكم. Allah will forgive you. Go seek forgiveness with Allah. وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. He is the most merciful of all those capable of showing any mercy. That type of attitude. We are entering into the month of Ramadan. Let us try to live up to that standard. You know, and I really, against my better judgment, I'm saying this, but, you know, especially with Professor Ramadan here, and mashallah being, you know, immensely more knowledgeable, and at the same time addressing something that happened in Europe, which obviously he will have better knowledge than all of us about. But the tragedy that occurred in Norway, I'm just going to talk about as somebody in America. And unfortunately, somebody who's really active online, social media and whatnot, all right? Everybody has a vice, okay? Don't judge, all right? So, when the tragedy in Norway occurred, from my perspective, and if I'm wrong, Allah forgive me, and I'll ask the professor to correct me. From my perspective, I saw one problem. Yes, we have been done wrong. As Muslims, we have been done wrong. I'm pretty sure everybody's seen the little Stephen Colbert piece by now, right? We forward that stuff like nobody's business, right? So, yes, we've been done wrong. And people are calling it out. We were judged unjustly. The call was made without the slightest bit of proof, research, evidence, anything. Investigation, nothing at all. The call was made. But on our end, see, we cannot control other people's actions. We're only responsible and accountable for our actions. And I have to say something about some of our own behavior. And that was when the tragedy occurred, and when the initial accusation was made, and then immediately, right, very soon afterwards, it was clarified and the truth came out. Many of us, and when I say us, I mean as Muslims, many of us behaved somewhat inappropriately. I'm talking about from what I saw and what I was interacting with people online. A lot of people behaved very inappropriately. Where they were like, it was like celebrations. It's like, yeah, it wasn't us. See, told you so. SubhanAllah, without the slightest bit of disregard, that dozens of people had done. Dozens of innocent people just died. There were dozens of families that were mourning. And we're high-fiving each other and fist-bumping each other and celebrating. Why? It wasn't us. Told you so. We have to, this is why I wanted to quote that prophetic example at the very end. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was wronged a lot more by the people in Makkah than we have been wronged by these people. He was a lot more wrong was done to him by Quraysh than any wrong that's been done to us. Yet when he got the opportunity to say, told you so, he didn't. He was graceful, he was benevolent, he was generous and compassionate. And he stood in front of his people and showed compassion. Let's try to always conduct ourselves based on that beautiful precedent, that prophetic model, that uswa hasana that has been set for us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the ability to practice everything that's been said and heard. SubhanAllah.